Yo, what is up world? Welcome back to the YouTube channel, and as you just read, today's video we're going to be talking about 4 ways to film outdoors with no lights. So I guess without further ado, roll the intro, and I'll see you soon. Have you ever been outdoors and wondered how in the world can I make this image, this film, look really nice without any lights? These are 4 ways to make your shots look cinematic when you're filming outside. Let's jump into the first one. All right, so the first one we're calling all natural. This is the most simplest way that you can do it, and there are a few ways to do so. If you can see here, this shot was done in a all natural way, and if you see me right here putting my thumbs up, that's letting you know it's super easy. All you got to do is just place your talent accordingly to the sun, which we'll kind of get into, and then just hit record. This is a really easy way to get a really nice looking image. Now you may have all seen images where your talent is outdoors and they are super front lit. That's not the most appealing. There's not a lot of shadow or contrast in your images. So what you want to do is you want to place the sun either behind your talent to get the most contrast within the shot, meaning the most darkest areas and the most brightest areas all infused into one image, and that is cinematic right there. But for this case, I didn't do that. So if you're not going to put the sun behind your talent, where do you put the sun? Where do you put your talent? You put them on this side, or you put the sun on the side of your talent, which is going to cast a shadow on one side of their face, which if you look here, that is exactly what we are getting. And you can see here, which I'll outline, this entire side of her face is all in light. And the contrast, which is what I'm talking about, is all right here in the blue. But that is how you get contrast in an all natural way. You just make sure your talent is oriented in such a way where the sun is either behind them or to the side of them. And that is the look that you're gonna get right here. So the pros here are that it is a very quick and simple, easy way to set up. That is a huge pro with this. That's what makes this one the most easiest and the fastest that you can achieve. And obviously, well, maybe not so obvious, but the con here is that you don't get much control with the shadow. You don't get much control of the light quality that's hitting your talent space, meaning the shadows that you see here are very hard shadows. Now, you may be into that. The story may call for that. It just depends on really what the story is calling for. So again, the pro is very quick, very simple. The con is you don't have very much control other than where you place your talent according to the sun. So keep those in mind when you're using the all natural approach. All right, so moving on to the next technique, we have the sun wrap. This here is the image. As you can tell, there is a lot of natural sun in this, and this is one way that you can do it. Again, like we talked about in the all natural approach, it depends on where you put your talent according to the sun. Now, if we try to find where the shadows are falling, we can see in their faces that there's a shadow. Go back to my blue pen, that we have shadow here on this side of our talent's face, and also in the background, you can see that we have shadow here, which really means that if we think about where the sun should be right over here, hitting our talent on this side of their face. So we're still creating contrast, which again, that means cinematic. Contrast, cinematic. Think of those as very simultaneous, 2 things that exist forever and ever. So again, depending on where you place your talent is the contrast levels that you're gonna get. So now with the sun wrap, all I'm doing is adding some bounce to the same side as the sun. And if we look at some BTS photos, you can see this almost exact shot, where I have the bounce right here. Let's just circle it. Blue may or may not be the best color, but that is bouncing sun back into our talent's face. And again, like I said, the sun is behind them, so we're bouncing from the same side as the sun. And the reason why we want to do that is so that we can create that contrast, which we saw in the final result. Again, this is the sun wrap, and the pro with this is you're controlling the quality of the light. Now, you're still gonna get hard light, but if you add more light into it, you're kind of smoothing out those edges. You're making sure that those hard shadows aren't so apparent. And as you can kind of see here in our talent's face, the light to the shadow is a much easier, a much smoother transition. So that is the pro, is just making sure that you're smoothing out those edges of the light. The cons to this, again, is you're not getting the full control of the light quality. Now again, quality we're referring to in the light is how hard a light is versus how soft a light is. Now meaning, are the shadows on someone's face going to be really hard? Or are they going to be really soft? Now we are getting a little bit of control, like I said, by adding light because we're bouncing it in, carrying over that light into the shadow side. But this is a really good technique that does require a little bit more difficulty, a little bit more finesse on the day. So in terms of equipment, you can literally just use a bounce board, which I have here. It's made out of foam. I guess you could say made/bought this at Home Depot. You can buy really huge sheets of this and you can cut them specifically to the size that you need. All right, so next up is our over easy technique. This one has a little bit more finesse and the difficulty level is not much more than our sun wrap. This here is our final image, and the over easy idea comes from having a diffusion, which you see here. This is a diffuse overhead. Now what I'm using in this particular shot is actually half soft frost. So half soft frost really is just a material that breaks up the light and makes the shadows a lot more appealing, much more softer, very similar to like what we talked about in the sun wrap and the all natural look. Now the pro to this is you're getting a much nice, more appealing quality of light. Now if you look here, it's hard to tell where those lines or the hard lines of the shadows are. And again, let's just take a look at some of the behind the scenes setup. Here you can just see how the diffusion over easy approach is being used. And if you look at the shadows that are being casted on my director, that is the outline of the diffusion that's overhead. And the quality of light that we are getting, we see on our Talon's face right there. It's very soft, it's very even. And the con to this, which I didn't talk about, the con to this is that we are not controlling how much contrast we have here, how much shadow that is. You're really just relying on the direction of the sun according to the diffusion overhead. And depending on where the sun is how much contrast you're gonna have. So again, if that sun is directly in front of your talent, you put the diffusion overhead, it's gonna smear off and it's going to be very, very flat. And that's kind of a pattern. I don't know if you picked it up, but depending on where the sun is when you're outside, you're really gonna get different looks, different images within your shot. So number 4, this is the over under. And this is one of my favorite techniques because you get to have so much control over your image. As you can see here, we have a super soft light. And again, like I said, when you're outside, you want to be aware of where the sun is exactly. So if we look at the background, we can see that all of this greenery is super hot, which kind of means that the sun is either overhead or it's behind. Now you can figure out if the sun is behind someone if you just look at their head. We have here a nice little backlight, which I just kind of gave it away. The sun is behind our talent. Doing the over-under technique really works the best and is the most optimal when the sun is behind our talent. Why is that? Because we can diffuse overhead with our diffusion. I'm just gonna draw a little diffuse here. So we have a diffusion overhead, which is the over part, and the under part is our bounce that we have off here to the side. And if you look into our talent's eyes, specifically right there, we have our bounce being reflected in her eye. So that's our diffusion that is overhead. That's the over part of the over under. Now the under part is right here, and that is our bounce. So we're diffusing the light that is overhead. We're making it very soft. We're controlling it. Unlike the previous 3 techniques that don't have as much control, this technique is going to give you the most range and the most control of your image. So diffusing overhead, and we're bouncing from underneath. Why are we bouncing from underneath? Is because we want to get the full sun hitting our bounce board, right? That's going to give us the most level. And we want to do that so that we can add more level to our talent's face, like we see here, to help fit in a natural looking shot with the background levels that you see all around here. So here's another image as well. This is setting up to get the over under achieved. Again, this is the diffusion diff. This would be the over. And here that's going to be flying in is the under, the bounce. So think over under, you're putting the diffusion overhead, under you're bouncing from underneath, making sure that you get the full sunlight. Now the pros to this again is getting the most and the maximum amount of control of the light. Images look better when you have contrast in it. And not only when you have contrast, but you have the quality of light that you want with the added contrast. But one of the drawbacks to this technique is time and equipment. Now, if you don't have enough time on set, which for this film, I didn't have a lot of time at all. That is one thing that's going to slow you down, and that may be one thing that turns you away from using the over-under technique. If you don't have enough time to set up an 8x or anything big enough to diffuse light, and then bring in a bounce, and then possibly add some neg if you want to have some contrast, you're going to have to start looking at the other 3 options, just for speed, just for time. And then also, if you don't have the equipment, if you don't have solid C-stands or combo stands or anything heavy enough to hold these materials down, you're probably not going to be able to use this technique. So I know it's a really nice technique, and again, I did say it is my favorite. It also isn't my favorite when I'm on a smaller budget project or when I'm with smaller amounts of crew. I just won't have the time to do it. I won't have the manpower to do it. So depending on whatever your situation is, you may or may not be able to execute any of these, but at least you have 4 ways to control your images to make them look, I don't know, cinematic. But if you enjoyed this week's vlog, you know what to do. Go ahead and do a super jump on that like button down below, and also get subscribed to the YouTube channel because every single Wednesday it's a brand new vlog. But before I let you go, I would love to hear which one of the 4 techniques is your favorite, and have you done any of those, and are any of these new to you? Let me know in the comments, and yeah, I'd love to hear about it. I'm Abut, a cinematographer / student, and I will see you all in 7 days. Bye, on.